I'm Eric Russell. I am out and about here at Richmond Triangle Players with the production of YANK, a World War II musical. Yeah. I love this show. I love historical pieces, but I love a musical, and a musical that's historical and has tap dancing and drag queens and Georgia Roger farmers. Then I am in love with this show. But I want you to tell who you are and who you play in this production, so we'll start here and go across.
My name is Luke Newsom, and I play Tennessee.
My name is Tyler Nobles, and I play Charles Chakowski.
I'm Georgia Rogers Farmer, the women.
I am Patrick Bello. I am the professor.
I am Matt Riley. I play Cohen in India.
I'm Kim Fox, musical director.
Woo. I'm Alex Burkhardt. I play Artie Goldberg.
I'm Joe Winters. I play Melanie and Lieutenant.
I'm Keith Fitzgerald. I play Sarge and Scarlet.
I'm James Silver. I'm the show's director.
I'm Tyler D. Wilson, and I play Vittorio Rotelli.
I'm Brent Burgess. I'm the set designer. I'm Ed Hughes, and I played Mitch Adams.
I'm Andrew Clay, and I play Stu/S.
/S. /S. I think it says that's the program too. This is amazing. I really had a great time tonight. And you actually made me cry too, because this is really such a great story. Because this is actually based on letters and journals and interviews of actually LGBT veterans and their families and such. So I think this is an amazing piece. You as the director, what brought you to this project? What made you want to direct YANK?
Well, I was in YANK in New York in 2007. And I came to Richmond to be a grad student at VCU, and one of my professors, Norman Barnes, is involved in this theater, and so I immediately started having conversations because the rights had just been released to be done regionally for the show when I came to grad school. So I was like, hey, is Triangle Players interested in YANK at all? And it was already on their radar, and so we just started talking. So yeah.
Because the whole story revolves around your two characters, Mitch and Stu, and S discovers Stu's journal early on in the show, and the way it just goes through, the title alone is fun, and when you realize it's an actual magazine from the time period, but it's called YANK. It's a military magazine called YANK. It conjures up so many other things. You know, hey, have you read YANK today? Just saying. Did you get your latest issue? You as a cast, what was it like to do this story and live the lives of these people in this platoon? Just, getting into this and getting ready, because this is way outside all of our time frames. I mean, World War II for me was experienced through musical movies with the Andrews sisters. They sang a cute song and they beat the Nazis, or you pick up an old issue of like Captain Marvel or Captain America or Superman, and they're fighting the Nazis and the whole war thing. But for you guys, what was it like to do this?
I was going to say something.
Nope.
Yeah, was it fun?
It was so much fun, We were a squad. We got to know each other, and
What? We did a lot of ensemble building. James led us through a lot of exercises of us all working together, and I think this is one of those types of shows that you're only as strong as your weakest link, just like a squad, just like you are in war. And so James approaching it from that angle, I think, really helped us understand where all these people were coming from. He also brought in some videos that they showed, different propaganda things that they were using during that time. So he was kind of really immersing us in the whole feel of the whole show.
Well, when you said squad, that was one of the songs that really stood out to me as an ensemble. And I wrote, your squad is your squad, and I wrote equals bromance, question mark. Because I'm going, this is people's relationships, and it's different layers of love. And that also brought me to, what does it cost to be in love? That was one of the things I pulled out. As a squad, as a group, what was your favorite moment in the show as a group? Like, you have a favorite song that you do, or just a favorite squatty moment as a member of this cast?
I think Betty for me, because it's the moment that Tennessee kind of stops giving shit to Stu. Everything leading up to it is he thinks he's this clumsy idiot that can't do anything right. But once they have this bonding moment, even though he doesn't realize that Stu's not actually really into it, from that point forward, he accepts him. It's kind of just, he's one of us now. I think that was his kind of defining moment with Stu.
Okay. I think for me, it's actually Letters. I think for me, it's just such a really beautiful song. And taking a step back, I think Letters is saying that my love and the professor's love for our wives and their girlfriends, it's the exact same thing as Stu and Mitch. I mean, it's just because the love I show towards my wife and feel is the exact same that I feel, or that Stu feels for Mitch.
I gotta say, maybe not quite as touching, but a lot of fun is Sap's Gal.
I think we're all on stage except for Drew.
It's a lot of fun knowing that you're a small puzzle piece on that. In that piece, it's a lot of fun. It's great.
Where's my centerfold? Where's my fruits? When you guys just come up with that whole scene and it's just basic, and then you jump to this whole Gone with the Wind, it almost felt like here's a generation that's identifying with, I'm Scarlet, and then you've got Wizard of Oz, and then you've got each generation which identifies with their icons. Like for me, it was like Absolutely Fabulous Pat's and Adina, and then you had Sex in the City. Talk about that little group real quick, because they pop up every so often. That little dynamic, that little trio.
Well, I mean, we're the kind of the thing that Stu can see that is the only time that it really looks like it's something that's okay to be like. When he comes in, he's first taken off guard, but we're freer and having a good time and doing our own thing because nobody's watching us. We can just be ourselves, and it sort of starts Stu on his journey to being okay and coming to terms with his sexuality. So I think that's like kind of our function. We're like
Catalyst in a way.
Yeah.
Because he even brings up to Mitch, is like, have you ever met the girls, or the guys in the film? We call ourselves the girls. But yeah, yes, if he's ever seen the people in the center wing, and that's us, and that kind of brings about the whole questioning of his sexuality.
I think also a very quick moment is at the end of that scene when he says, "You're all a disgrace to the Army." It's such a telling thing about rejecting a part of himself, I think. And I think so many people can identify with that.
And this was a really unique time. People think Stonewall was the big catalyst, but World War II was the time when these people, men and women who were gay and lesbian, left the farms and were sent to big urban centers, and they started to meet other people like themselves. And they're beginning to explore this. I did a little bit of history, because it's, you have to have an educational moment, the more you know. Approximately 5,000 men who were called before the draft board out of 18 million were initially screened out for being homosexual. They had also done studies, and they would do a test where the doctors would stick a tongue depressor in their mouth, and if you gagged, you were straight. If you didn't gag, they booted you out. I'm just, these were the, I know. Let's see, they did a psychological study. In the barracks, usually when the men are getting undressed, various persons will kiddingly assume the role of an overt homosexual. One soldier returning from the shower in the nude will be greeted with catcalls, salacious whistling, comments like, "Hey Joe, you shouldn't go around like that, you don't know what it does to me." These were all studies and things that they did and did as training films and indoctrinations. It was interesting that they're here to fight for their country. And I found a letter where the gentleman who wrote it said, "I can't change. I have no desire to change because it took me a long time to figure out how to enjoy life. For you'll agree, I'm not going back to what I left." And this was a GI who was like, "I'm going to fight for my country." When Pearl Harbor happened, they just took anybody. They actually stopped the screenings as the war was coming to an end. They started to do blue discharges. So you weren't disowned discharge. These guys were like blacklisted for life.
Discharges.
Yeah.
One of the things I remember, there's a book called Coming Out Under Fire that
Yes.
David Zelnick read and were from when creating this, and I read it a started, and I know some of the people in the cast read it too. There was a psychological test that was created by one of the creators of the psychological test to see if someone was homosexual, had a young male partner at home but was heterosexual in society, and it was just a really interesting little tidbit of information.
And that is a great read. I've actually read that, and really it's a great part of our history, just knowing this.
And I think one of the things I really love about this piece is a couple of regular guys, the song I mentioned, Stu sing together, because one of the things that's great about this play is it's a guy play.
It is.
Like, it's a dude play. And it just happens that the dudes fall in love, and you're like, okay. But it's a very masculine play, and I think when people think about what a gay play was, I would say probably pre-1985 or something, or even going back into the Hays Code era, whatever. Like, this is a war play with a homosexual relationship, and that's what I love.
Because we're not seeing the sissy, we're not seeing the fop, we're not seeing the person who's dying. It's not campy, but it has those things that we have in life, because there is camp in life. We've got the Centerfold, we've got the Army having sanctioned drag shows on bases to entertain the troops. You've got these great moments. Do you have, as a cast, because I read it about it too, so I'm thinking, going back to the Gone with the Wind, what was your Gone with the Wind name? I'm sure you all picked one. That's the question.
Scarlett, Melanie, India, Belle.
We know those ones. I don't know.
Bitch can be red.
Hollywood up there.
Which brings me to, everyone had a nickname. The Centerfold had theirs, and the guys within their squad, they nicknamed each other. Like, it's a term of endearment. So we have Hollywood, and then we have
Light loafers.
Sweetheart.
Tennessee is a nickname.
Raphael.
Professor.
Right.
Professor, not literally.
Tennessee is not Tennessee's name. Everyone calls it.
Looking at y'all's relationship, where did Stu realize that maybe this is going to go someplace? What's that little moment for him that he thinks, okay, this is it?
Well, you first kind of see it in the opening number Yank, where Mitch comes out of the shower, and it's right after Stu has given a monologue about how he doesn't like showers because he isn't very comfortable, and maybe because he's not comfortable, it means he's more of a man than the rest of the squad. So when Mitch comes out, especially right after giving that monologue, his initial reaction to seeing Mitch and to being clearly uncomfortable in a sort of, I'm attracted to you way, I think that's the first part of it. Not necessarily that it was Mitch, it could have been anybody, but I think that's the first part where you kind of see who Stu really is. And then going forward, when Mitch polishes his shoes, it's the first real time anyone in the squad has actually been any sort of nice to him. So I think especially the connection between, okay, well this guy, he's really nice. Obviously he cares about me, that, I'm in his team. That sort of stuff. After that, that's really the first part of it, and the conversation they have after that, where it's clear that he calls him sweetheart, and he's going, all right, well maybe this guy, has something else in there. But I mean, the most obvious thing to say would be the awkward train kiss. Yeah.
Georgia, as the woman, all of them. My favorite scene is when your whack officer finds him in jail and has that moment. Where is your character coming from at this point, at that moment? Because she comes up, she's disappointed in him.
Yes. That's Louise, and I do think she's disappointed in him at that time. She gave him a good lesson earlier, trying to school him on the ways of hiding. But I think near the end of it, she really appreciates his dedication and just gives him, he gives her hope that maybe he can make a difference. So. go for it. I
because
think it's hopeful.
he has this thing, like, he's like, maybe not today, but maybe like 1948 or 1951.
Right.
And in my head, I'm
Real
thinking,
Yeah.
I really think these men and women coming home from war thought, we fought for our country, maybe I can have this life that everybody else has. And then, of course, we know what happened when they all came home. It wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be.
Right, right.
Because some of those veterans didn't even get vet care, they didn't receive benefits. It wasn't until, I want to say, and I could be wrong, like up to 10 years ago, that a lot of those surviving veterans, I believe, got their statuses reinstated. They could receive vet benefits now.
Wow.
After being assigned discharged, they went back into the don't ask, don't tell, being field and some other things.
And they didn't get state funerals either.
Kim.
Eric.
Yes. That's right. Yes. Working with this group, there's so many different music styles, and boogie and stuff.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It was so much fun. Great music, hard music. These guys worked their butts off for me, and couldn't be happier with their work. I mean, a pleasure to work with all of them.
What's y'all's favorite song as a cast again? What was your like as a group that you like singing?
Letters.
Letters is probably the greatest. Squad is like the most fun. It gets you pumped and into it.
Dance parties.
It depends. Yeah. And batting.
But even the show itself, there's a lot of really good music. I think just going into this, I was like, this is a new show. I was like, I don't know quite how I feel about it. But once I got into it, I was like, damn, this music is really good. It's good. I mean, the music is genuinely good.
Georgia, what's your favorite song that you like to sing in the show? Out of all the women that you sing.
Probably My Soldier at the end.
And that one really got me going because they had the images going behind.
It's nice.
You had to wonder, like, who's sung, who's that? Is that someone's, where they live? So
And interestingly enough, all of those pictures are from family members from our cast.
okay, so who were they? When those moments, who belongs to what photo that was up there?
The last one that says "Welcome Home" is our lighting designer, Michael Jarrett's grandfather.
Okay.
Grandfather. Yeah. I know that. I don't know.
And
I know a lot.
the three-person photograph, there's my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother, and then there's a little girl sitting in between them, and that's my grandmother.
And my father is in there.
Was he the Navy one? Or
Yes.
My great-grandfather's the one squatting and squinting and posing.
And looking exactly like you.
I really loved it because photos from that time period are still very romantic. Yeah. Great.
Aren't they all so handsome?
Everybody.
Yeah.
He liked like, hi. You guys have an amazing show. What do you want an audience to take away from this story and this experience?
For me, we talked about this a little bit with Phil and different people, but when you think World War II, you think FDR, you think Stalin, you think Holocaust, you think how much 75 years later, how could I have possibly heard any more? And you come and see this play, and it's a story about this big world event that you've probably never heard of. It's something new. It's something just as important. And it's not the cliche. I mean, everything's important about the war, but it's not, those events. It's not Churchill. It's not. It's a whole different story right here on the home front and out in the war. It's different, and it's a pleasure to learn about.
I think on the same note, it's that, it's such a personal show. It's such a personal message that so many people experience, but nobody hears about. Like you said, it's something that is so well done and so personal.
Coattailing off of that, there's a great line in the song. I think it's Just True, where you say, what we have is special, what we are is not. And I just been thinking about that for days. Like, that's it. Because I feel like the play at first sort of, you think it's going to be about something. And then it's about this very beautiful personal relationship.
And relationships between everybody, because They become a family. It's that whole, you don't get to pick your family, but these are the people you're in with. And Kowalski is the one I believe, he really kind of like, we're a family, we're a group here. You know, Chikowski. Grease. Family Guy is brought to you. Final thoughts, anyone, about the show?
I just want to say, I think it's definitely a really important historical piece, but I think it's still very socially relevant. And I think I think it's a great show to come and see, and then go to a bar or coffee shop wherever you go, and just sort of talk about like what did you just experience, and how does that relate to a lot of the social issues that are very current right now.
Yeah. Because we've got the marriage amendment, but for the Supreme Court to make their final decision, and of course you guys all came out for the No Hate event, which was amazing. So thank you for being part of that. But yeah, they were always in the process of coming out. I think Stu said it great. I found out who I am, but you spend the rest of your life always coming out to that next person, that next group, and it's a whole process. It's not just a one-time thing. And then the vulnerabilities of falling in love with somebody.
And as a history major,
that's right. You will learn on the show.
And as someone that identifies with the LGBTQ community, I think it's a great point for people who do identify as LGBTQ to say, my history goes beyond Stonewall, or my history goes beyond, whatever, and goes back hundreds of years, and this is a great example that this is not, people like us have been around a lot longer than we think. Yeah. So I think for me that's something that it's like, we've been around a long time, and it's important to remember your heritage.
But also, it's not just a story for LGBTQ community. It's for everyone, including straight people. Like, even at the very end, S says, you never find out his sexuality, but you learn about, he says, I learned how to love because of listening to and reading Stu's story. And it's regardless of whether it's gay, straight, whatever, it's a very universal story.
Yeah, I agree.
A love story is a love story.
I agree. Yeah, this is a love story.
It's a love story. It's true. And I like that whole line again. What does it cost to be in love? And we've seen that cost. We've seen from coming home from the war to Stonewall riots to the rally for equality. We've seen the cost of it. It's still an ongoing issue for people to be able to love. So, great story. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I'm doing this, because I love everything y'all do. The show is Yank, the World War II musical. It is here at Richmond Triangle Players. You can get tickets at ourtriangle.org. It runs through June 7th. So, there's 13th. Oh, June 13th. There's a change on here. June 13th. I can't read. Trifocals, cataract. No, through June 13th. So get your tickets for this, because this is an amazing show.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Russell. I've been out with the cast of Yank here at Richmond Triangle Players. You never know where I'll turn next. See you next time, y'all.
See you naked!